Hello, welcome back to YCFT, the show where we talk about movies, both old and new, but usually quite scary.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're talking about a brand new film. We haven't reviewed a film in a little while.
Nope.
You also noticed I didn't say we're doing something a little bit different because we absolutely aren't doing anything different.
No, we're not.
We're not. We are talking
lie.
about Scott Derrickson's new film,
Yeah.
The Blackphone,
Yep.
starring Ethan Hawke, and co-written by C. Robert Cargill.
Yes.
If those names seem familiar to you, then you might know them from a little movie from 2012 called Sinister.
God, 10 years.
10 years. We will be covering Sinister on its birthday, at some point this year.
We will.
I don't want to constantly compare it to Sinister, but there are some similarities I will touch on.
Yeah. The Derrickson touch.
The Derrickson touch. In this film, it's based on a short story by Joe Hill, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. Don't know if you've heard of him. Kind of big in horror circles. But Joe Hill is a very famous horror writer in his own right. And Blackphone is part of a short story collection that was published in 2004 called 20th Century Ghosts. And I have this book. Annoyingly, I've got it at home in Liverpool. And I bought it years and years and years ago from Borders, if anyone remembers Borders. And I fell in love with it. The stories in it are just so kind of whimsical and scary, but also like weirdly beautiful as well. It's kind of hard to describe, but for the life of me, I can't remember The Blackphone. So I don't know if I read it and have just forgotten about it, or if I didn't, I skipped that one. I'm not sure. But yeah, that whole collection is just, it's a treat.
So what did you think of the movie?
I loved it. I really liked it.
Yeah, I also really liked it.
Yeah.
I also really liked, because we saw it day one, wasn't it?
We did. It was released in the UK before in the US.
For the US. There was only like one or two showings.
Yeah.
Loads of showings of obviously Top Gun and Jurassic World. Two showings of this film.
Yeah.
On a Saturday night, I expected this to be dead, but it was packed.
Yeah. I said to you, I was worried we were going to probably be the only couple in there potentially. But no, it was one of the busiest screenings I've been in a while.
Which is great for an original IP. And also,
Yeah.
I had seen the trailer going into this.
No, I had.
I went in purely based on the poster and who was involved. Looking back, I do think I think you agree with me, the trailer gives away a little bit too much.
I do. I mean, I had seen the trailer about 2 weeks before we went to see the film, and luckily I had forgotten a lot of what was in the trailer. I got the gist of what the premise was about, but now having seen the film, and then retrospectively rewatching the trailer, I do think it spoils a fair few important scenes that I think a lot of people would otherwise
I think particularly
better
lot
not to have known.
Of Ethan Hawke's scenes.
Yeah, but there's also a scene of the ending as well. Like the kind of showdown as well, which that has no business being in a movie trailer. Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't see it. Also, I'm going to be using trailer stuff in this video, but I'm going to try our best to... We want to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. We will touch on certain plot points, but we aren't going to talk about the ending. We're
not going to reveal the ending. I think... We are obviously going to be talking about certain scenes that perhaps some of you would, if you haven't seen the film, you might prefer not to know. Certain like specific plot points that are important. So yeah.
Yeah, so the basic plot of this film is it's set in 1978, which many believe to be a reference to Halloween.
Oh, I didn't even clock onto that, but yeah. The boogeyman.
And Ethan Hawke plays a character called the Grabber.
Mm-hmm.
Children have been disappearing all over this town, very much like it. We have missing posters on top of missing posters.
Missing boys.
Missing boys in particular.
Yeah.
And these boys are being kidnapped, and our lead character, Finney, is taken.
He is taken.
And put into a basement, a soundproof basement with a disconnected black phone, and he starts receiving phone calls from previous victims who want to help him escape.
He also has a sister, a younger sister, who it turns out is psychic and...
Is a bit, I think, clairvoyant.
Clairvoyant
is the best way we can describe it.
She has dreams, she has visions of the Grabber and of his previous victims too. So she's trying to help the police, giving them as much information as she can based on her dreams. And that is like literally the plot. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah, it is. It's very simple.
Boil it right down. I can't shout enough about the kid actors in this.
No, I think especially the sister. Who plays her?
She Madeline McGraw.
I think this is her debut, wasn't it?
I think it's a film debut. She had acted in previous things, I think. And Finney, our main character who's been kidnapped, he's played by a guy called Mason Thames.
He was very good. Because a lot of the scenes with the ghost, he can't see them. So he has
No.
to act pretending like he's on his own to try and not be distracted by things around. And I think it's very hard to do, even because anything distracts you, your eyes are going to dart.
Yeah.
Even if you're trying to avoid something. And I think he does a really good job.
Yeah.
Just throughout the entire film, you see he goes on a really interesting arc.
He does.
But I really like the first half of the film when it sets up the position the characters are in, like a bit of an abusive home life. He is also being bullied. He has a protector, but then his protector is taken.
Yes.
And the bullying scenes are rough in this film.
This is undeniably a horror movie, but for me, this is it was emotional to watch.
I think a lot of the true horror,
sad.
especially in the first half of the film, comes from the real life scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, you can take a lot of the supernatural elements out of this film, and it's still
a rough ride.
A rough ride.
It really is. Yeah. Finney is relentlessly bullied at school. He's quite an intelligent young guy, but he's just a target for, I don't know, some of the other kids. He has a friend who is quite rough and tough, and he is Finney's
likes his
protector.
Bruce Lee movies.
He likes his Bruce Lee movies. He likes Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They have a fun conversation about that in the school toilets. But his friend is ultimately taken by the grabber as well, which kind of leaves Finney open to...
Yeah, I think that's what, again, helps link Finney to the other ghosts, is some of them he knows.
He does know
two of them that he knows.
The way the supernatural is used in this, I think, is so fascinating.
It is. Like, we've had it in the past where supernatural elements have been trying to help the main character, but usually the message kind of gets lost in the fear of, oh shit, it's a ghost.
It's a ghost.
It
jump
is,
scare, ghost, spooky.
I feel like it becomes quite clear early on that the ghosts are trying to help.
This is the thing. The horror in this movie does not come from the traditional supernatural sense. It's like, I counted, I think we have 2 jump scares in this film. The first one got me good. It got everyone in the cinema. But really, you actually get over the fact very quickly that there are ghost children in this film.
Yeah.
The horror doesn't come from seeing the dead kids.
Yeah, Derrickson does dead children really well. Like, I think
There's
he did
a
in Sinister quite
melancholy
well.
to it.
Yeah.
There's a sadness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't appear like out of the blue for the most part. It's more just their presence. The fact that they can't communicate with Finney aside from talking to him on the phone.
Their voice sounds like it's coming out the phone as well.
Yes, they don't even have their own voice. And the first conversation Finney has with one of the boys, Finney asks, who are you? What's your name? And the boy on the other end of the phone says, I can't remember. He literally says, it's the first thing you lose when you're here.
Yeah.
Meaning you lose your identity when you die, presumably. So it has very interesting ideas about like the nature of purgatory.
Yeah.
This film. These boys are stuck. They're stuck because
very
the grabber
different form
is still
of
around.
purgatory that we see in Sinister.
Yes. Very, very different.
Actually, I quickly get all my Sinister comparisons out the way.
Okay.
For starters, the cell has like a line across it that is very much the Sinister poster.
The Sinister like bloodline on the wall.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, no, there's a poster comparison to another film. You actually see the poster for this, which is the picture of the phone with the black phone next to it. It actually really looks a lot like the poster for David S. Sandberg's Lights Out.
Yeah.
Which I found quite interesting. One of Ethan Hawke's character, he wears masks.
He does. We'll talk about the grabber
one of the masks I think from a particular angle is made to look a bit like Bagul.
Yeah.
Which that's
Ooh.
yeah,
Ooh.
because one of the masks doesn't have a mouth. We only see it once.
Yeah.
And I think that's meant to be a Bagul reference.
Potentially.
Yeah. But also in terms of comparing him to Bagul. Mainly this is an interview with Scott Derrickson. He said very early on, do not expect to get a lot of backstory on this character. To hear the motives. Like with Bagul.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. And
it's a mystery.
Obviously he didn't direct the second Sinister where they do go more into it, but he very much wanted to leave it ambiguous.
Yeah.
And that's scary. The not knowing is scarier. And it is the same with the grabber. We don't know what his motivations are.
No.
We don't know that much about his past. There's hints at his past that you've really got to look for. It almost seems to be hinted that he himself might have been put into this cellar by his own father.
I think it's very much open to interpretation. It doesn't lead you to think one way or another.
Yeah.
It's just
I
totally
do love
down
it.
to what
That's
you
my sense of the comparisons out of the way. I do love it. This is on the supernatural side, it is your very typical... A lot of supernatural stuff is revenge, isn't it? The ghosts,
yes.
they want revenge.
They do, yeah.
They want to use Finney to beat this guy that took their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a combination of all the different methods that they've tried.
See, that's what I love. So every phone call that Finney has with a different boy, they suggest to him ideas as to how to get out of the basement that they began but ultimately couldn't finish. So, like, for instance, one of them draws his attention to the window, and Finney's like, oh, it's impossible, I can't reach that high. And the boy is like, yes, you can, and this is how you do it. One of them draws his attention to something else. One of them tells him about something else. And ultimately, it does, like, he uses, like, a combination of all of those things to try
I always get the feeling that, and not going into this, I feel like the grabber wants them to try and escape. Because there's things down there, like rolled up carpets and stuff like that. I feel like he I think he wants the hunt.
Potentially.
He wants them to try and escape, because he always waits for them.
He does. We'll chat about the grabber in a sec, because the psychology of him is so interesting. But we also don't ever find out how the boys are killed.
No.
We don't ever flash back to a murder scene. And it's again, like the grabber himself, it's very ambiguous as to how these boys are killed.
I feel it's definitely clear that they all died in different ways.
Do you think so?
I believe they all died differently. Just looking at the injuries on each one of them, I think they've all died differently.
Okay.
That's just what I got from it.
So the grabber himself, we've already said, we don't ever really come to know too much about this guy. We know he's obviously like a middle-aged man. He enjoys wearing masks. He drives around in a blacked-out magician's van.
Do you believe he's actually a magician?
Well, I asked you this, and I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think he is.
You don't think he is? It's just a guise to entice the kids?
Yeah.
Potentially. He carries around black balloons.
There's a lot of comparisons to It, like Pennywise with the balloons.
I read a review that basically his character, the grabber, is like Pennywise combined with Willy Wonka. And I do really like that.
I love the masks, and there's several the mask can split, and he's got different mouths for them, different eyes, horns. We see even just having the bottom bit, but then his eyes. When we first see him, his face is just painted. You never fully see his face.
Yeah, they're like
or even sometimes you just have to top it. And I always interpret. I'd have to watch it again to really know, but I feel like the different masks show different moods.
Oh, they do. 100%
and that's
they do.
Sometimes why they can mix and
like
match.
Why he alternates. Why one day he's wearing the grin and one day he's wearing the sad.
And sometimes he's just got no mouth at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes he has the horns.
They're clearly inspired by like the old style theatre mask, happy and sad.
The smiley one you think is based off an old film, don't you?
Yes, it's London After Midnight. It's a Lon Chaney movie. If you kind of put them side by side, it's like, yes. Tom Savini was clearly inspired, I think.
Yeah, Tom Savini designed this mask. I can't remember. He didn't make it. There was another guy who went through his school, his company that made it, but Tom Savini designed. They said in an interview recently they had to make 45 masks because they filmed it during COVID. They needed stunt masks. They needed masks for then stuntmen and doubles, as well as ones for Ethan Hawke. It's ones that split, because you got the solid ones. You can see they split, but they're solid. Then you needed them all split as well.
Yeah.
And then you needed doubles of all of them as well. They made like 45 masks for that film.
Masks.
The masks are great. They did a lot of research into like late 1800s masks, or like what the material would look like.
It's really, really cool.
This time they wanted to look like that's something that he's acquired and modified.
But ultimately, why he chooses to wear the masks,
we don't know.
We don't know.
We just don't know.
We never get to know.
An interesting thing that Tom Savini said is that why people seem to have gravitated so much towards masks, which they didn't expect, is our generation hasn't had our masked serial killer. We have a lot of attachment to like the Michael Myers, the Jason Voorhees, like those very famous masks, but we don't.
We don't have our own.
We have a lot of superheroes that wear masks, but we don't have our serial killer mask.
I really like the logic behind that, but at the same time, I don't want this to turn into a franchise in the same way that Halloween did or Friday the 13th
even
did.
to an extent, the issues I have with Sinister 2.
Which I like that.
It's a fine film, but we didn't need it.
We didn't need it, exactly. This film does not need a sequel, guys.
No.
It also doesn't need a prequel. Don't fuck this up.
No,
just let it exist on its own little thing.
Prior to this, hadn't played villains before. You didn't want to, but this was the first way. You filmed this before you played the villain Moon Knight. Whereas I think he is 10 years on from Sinister. He wanted to do something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not have a lot of screen time in this film.
He does not, which I love.
Yeah.
I love. So the grabber himself, he kidnaps the boys. He leaves them down there with nothing but a tatty-looking little bed, and he brings them food occasionally. Scrambled eggs. Sometimes he leaves the door open. And Finney is obviously, when this first happens, his instinct, of course, is to open the door and go upstairs. And then instantly we get a phone call, and one of the boys warns him, do not go up the stairs.
Yeah.
And we realise that it's a trap. If the boys try to escape, then we see Ethan Hawke, shirt open, waiting for them with a belt.
Yeah, there's a little promotional image of this, and it's creepy. I know one thing they wanted with the mask is they said in the designs, he has to be able to act with his eyes. That scene, I think, is scariest because of the way it's lit. The shadows cover his eyes. You cannot tell if he's awake or not. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the most tense scenes in the film.
Yeah.
But obviously the belt does link to Finney's home life. Yes.
There's a really horrible scene actually near the beginning where Finney and Gwen, who's a sister, they're at home, and the dad does obviously not approve of his daughter's psychic ability, which links back to his dead wife, who was also psychic. She ended up taking her own life because of this. And so the dad, in his grief and his alcoholism and his depression, he now associates this clairvoyancy with a downward spiral. So he hates any mention of his daughter's, of this ability that she has. So there's a really nasty scene where he takes his belt and he's abusing her with it. And it's horrible to watch. Poor Finney is standing there watching from the door. He doesn't know what to do. She's screaming, she's crying, she's begging her dad to stop. He's almost like he's trying to beat it out of her.
Yeah.
Beat this.
They could easily have set him up to be a villain in this. And that you, at no point do you, I have to be very clear, do not condone what he's doing, but the film makes efforts for you to kind of understand his warped logic.
It does contextualise it.
Contextualise it. It's horrific what he's doing, and what he's doing is wrong. But like you said, he is massively alcoholic, and he is massively grief-stricken, and at the end of the day, he doesn't want his daughter to kill herself like
absolutely
his wife did.
He doesn't want his daughter to be destroyed by it.
I just think it was a really smart move to make him more of a three-dimensional character.
Yes.
It doesn't get touched on that much more of that. But it just doesn't... Sometimes I feel like they have that... In Stephen King especially, films more so than the books. Books go into a lot of detail. A lot of films like, we need stock abusive father character to make the kids strong. Strong and independent. This is that step a little bit further, makes character feel a bit more real.
Yeah. I think, too, going back to the lack of jump scares in this film, this is one, it does away with a lot of that, and instead it kind of paves the way for this sort of... There's a dread to the film constantly that never really lets up. So it's like once we see the dad being abusive to his daughter, there's a scene a little bit later on in the film where she's praying to Jesus in bed. I think Finney has been taken at this point in time, and she hears her dad, and she jumps in bed wanting to think that she's asleep, and he kind of lingers in the doorway, and there's just this... I don't know for anyone else, but for me, because I already now know that he is abusive to his daughter, does that scene of him standing in the doorway then link to something else? And thankfully it doesn't. And
I believe that the intention of that scene was to kind of show he doesn't do that.
He doesn't.
It's to show that he may physically abuse it. It invites you to
think it.
Yeah. I think it invites you to momentarily think it.
Yes.
But then when he just says, no, it's time for bed, and goes to bed, it's like...
Turn the lights off.
All right, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. But there is this. Oh my god. Oh god. Are we going to see this? And this dread. It builds and it builds and it builds. Because obviously she is terrified, but I feel like in that scene she's terrified because she was inviting her abilities. Yeah. And she doesn't want to be overheard doing it. But I do think the scene is set up to make you think, does he? But then by the end it's a, no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Again, that's what I think makes it a really interesting dynamic.
It's what makes it a very interesting horror, because again...
A lot of the issues are real-life issues.
These are real-life issues.
Especially the 70s were ripe for serial killers and child kidnappers.
Danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
the colour palette.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
We watched a video just on the colour of this. And it
lovely.
feels like the 70s.
It does.
And I look like one last sinister comparison, the Super 8 Flash, when she has her clairvoyant
dreams.
They're
visions.
in Super 8, like...
They are, which very much, like Sinister again, like the snuff film style, which I think is very much a Scott Derrickson thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like he's kind of paying homage to Sinister in that sense as much as he just likes the Super 8 style. Yeah. I think, I'd be surprised if we don't see that again.
The tones coming in, it's like...
It's great, it really is great, but yeah, ultimately, poor Finney, he ends up from one abusive situation just right into another.
But does his abusive situation at home almost prepare him for this situation? It's like he didn't seem to fear...
No.
When he sees him with a belt, it's like, it's almost the bravest we've seen. Obviously, he's scared, but I feel like his home situation has almost prepared him to not be horrified of this. He
was also warned by the ghosts.
He was warned, yeah.
They told him explicitly, do not go up the stairs. Mm-hmm. And I think it asks a lot of questions ultimately about Ethan Hawke's character, because as soon as you hear child abductor, kid trapped in a basement, your mind instantly, again, it goes to that, like paedophilic sexual place. This is a child predator. There's no real conclusion you can draw because we don't see anything of that nature. Mm-hmm. I think that the image of Hawke with his shirt open, waiting there with a belt, it's pretty suggestive, and he does like to call the boys when he does hit his naughty boys.
Yeah.
So
that's got to be something to do with his upbringing.
So again,
is he taking the place of his father?
Was he abused? Is the basement that he takes the kids in the basement that he was perhaps once trapped in as a boy? Again, we don't know.
We just don't know.
We don't know, and I like it.
I love talking about it, discussing it, and I hope we don't get answers. I don't want a sequel. The Blu-ray might have some deleted scenes that might lean in on it a bit more.
I don't want a sequel, guys. It will ruin it. And yet, you mentioned it before that Derrickson has spoken a lot about the importance of mystery with movie villains, and he referenced Hannibal Lecter as a big kind of inspiration. It's like, we don't know why Lecter likes to eat people, and if we did, then that would instantly take away a lot of the dread that you feel when you're around the guy. He referenced the Joker as well. We don't know why he became the way he became. He just is, and that is infinitely more scary. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really interesting themes in this movie as well. So we've spoken a little bit about abuse and trauma. Gwen and Finney are obviously abused by their father. They have to rely on each other. He's bullied at school. Although Gwen stands up for her big brother quite a lot. She's badass.
She is badass. I really like Gwen.
Yeah. I guess monsters are just a bit of a theme in this film. There's quite a few talks and references to previous horror films. Like Finney and his mate, they talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. Do you have that? What is the movie that Finney's watching on the telly?
The Tingler.
The Tingler.
Which is a, oh, bloody hell, what's he called? It's an old William Castle movie, and William Castle was a big name in the 50s and 60s.
He was very much, he liked his theatrics.
Yes.
And if you look at The Grabber, the way he...
Yes.
It comes across, like, especially when he takes Finney, he's very theatrical.
Yeah, like the hand movements and everything.
The hand movements, the balloons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, that's what I took away from him watching a William Castle movie.
And then also, I guess there's this theme of just maturation. You made that excellent point. Finney goes into that basement a boy.
And comes out a man.
We get this innocence corrupted, innocence being cut short, these boys deprived of a full lived life. It's standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Finney was not able to protect himself from the bullies at school, but he eventually is perhaps able to put up a hell of a fight against his biggest enemy so far. So there's lots of really interesting facets that the film plays with.
I also really like, because we do get a brief look at the investigation side of it, so we see people ringing around each other, which is... I think it taps into our generation's obsession with true crime, but also like what it would have been like with serial killers back in the day in small towns. It's like you can actually compare a lot to Summer of '84.
You can actually,
like, the two killers I think are quite similar. It's like it's always somebody's neighbour.
It's always someone you know. Yeah, that's the. I mean, I like the whole movie thing because the conversation about Texas Chainsaw, and then he's watching The Tingler. It's like, yeah, these are movie monsters, Whereas, what about the guy next door? What about the creepy guy next door that's kidnapping kids in his
Or
basement
to an extent,
that's just able to blend
Finney
in?
and Gwen, they live with a bit of a
They
monster.
live with a monster.
Who's dealing with his own monsters.
The horror is always a lot closer to home than
Yeah.
you know.
So it's
you
almost
give it
like the
credit
grabber
for.
isn't the scariest part of this movie, but he is. Like, Ethan Hawke is incredible.
Yeah.
The brief scenes we have him in, he has such an impact.
Such a presence.
And
yeah,
yes, like I
He's
feel like
great.
every time his mask has a different shape, he has to change the performance.
Yeah, well, his voice changes.
His voice changes as well, and
yeah.
I think he's going to be someone who lingers. Like I think people are going to remember this, and I think
I hope so.
I hope he goes into playing more villains because he's a very, very talented actor. And that mixture of true crime and investigation into horror is so cool.
I love that blend. I really love.
Another one. Sinister did that really well.
They did. Yeah, they did. We also not to dwell on it too much, but we do have a brother character, James Ransone.
Oh yeah. I forgot James Ransone's in this.
James Ransone is in this movie. He was also in Sinister. He was in Sinister 2. He plays Officer So-and-so. And he was also in It Chapter 2. He plays grown-up Eddie.
Yeah. I do feel like he's a bit underutilized. Hence, I forgot his character. He does ultimately serve a purpose.
He does.
But you bring him in to play a comedic role.
Which
he is very good at.
Up
but
for debate if it's needed.
I feel like we needed at least one more scene with him.
I think I agree with that, and I also think we needed to tone down on the comedy a little bit.
Yeah.
But he clearly has a good relationship with Scott Derrickson.
Yeah, I feel like he's almost in there as a reference himself.
But potentially, yeah. It's like, you know, I would not be surprised if he appears in another Scott Derrickson movie as just like a random character.
I hope
Ethan
Hawke works with him again.
I think they will. I mean, this film is getting pretty good reviews.
Yeah. A lot of praise, and I feel like box office is doing really well.
Yeah.
As well.
I really, really liked it. It's a great blend of true crime and horror.
It's an original IP.
Yeah.
And we have seen some really good original films this year.
We have. But I also hope that this is also the start of more Joe Hill adaptations.
Yeah.
Too, because
we've had a lot of his dad, but Joe Hill is
we will always have a lot of Stephen King.
He's a very talented writer in himself.
One review I did see that I disagree with, a negative review, is that they thought that the film had a lot of padding to it, a lot of like filler scenes to try and fill the runtime. When you think about it, this is based on a short story that's like 26 pages long. Mm-hmm. Of course you need to add scenes.
See, I didn't have any problem with the pacing. I thought things...
I had absolutely no problem with it.
Moved really nicely, like I say, a nice pace along.
No
I was never
problem.
bored at any point.
Never.
I do think... I think I said this coming out. I did predict the ending. There was a point where I did kind of work a lot out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it didn't ruin it
at all.
Experience. I had the same issue when I saw Get Out. I don't dislike the film in any way. I really like it. But I did work it out about halfway through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, as much as I do love this movie, the biggest... The thing I loved most about it, I guess, was what it does with the supernatural. These ghosts and like the sadness of the ghosts really kind of intrigued me.
Yeah.
Derrickson does a lot of interesting stuff with like he does a very like interesting spin.
Yeah. It was like, well, he's back at horror now. He took a little break away to go make Doctor Strange and then to walk away from Doctor Strange 2, but he is back.
Yes.
Doing horror, and I want to know what he does.
I hope it's another Joe Hill adaptation.
Yeah.
I hope so. I really, really do. I just want to see more of Joe's stuff. But yeah, this was a fantastic movie. Yeah.
Have you got any more notes?
No, I don't think so. I think I'd just say if you are going to go and see this, don't expect for it to be like jump scare. It's not that kind of a horror movie.
Yeah. But I do think it's a very accessible horror film.
It is. Again, I think because of the true crime element.
Yeah.
There's a mystery to solve here.
I think it's a good film to watch if you're not necessarily into horror either. Again, because of the true crime element.
Yeah.
I will 100% watch this film again. I want to get on Blu-ray because I want to see some special features. I've seen some behind the scenes stuff, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. And also don't be put off by the whole, like, I say this, but like child abduction stuff, because if you're worried that you're going to see something you might not want to see, it doesn't go into that level of detail or nastiness. So yeah, I really, really, really recommend this film.
Yeah, same. Okay, well thank you for stopping by, guys. Obviously you can tell we really enjoy this. We don't often do reviews of new movies, but when we do, We hope you go see them as well. We hope you enjoy them just as much as we did. And we will see you next week.
Bye.